Welcome back to These Are the Days podcast. Glad you're here. We're stoked to be here. Baby, ready for a connect card?
Let's do it.
Where do we pull from?
We need some more connection this week. We need some more connection in general.
Every week, right? Okay. What is something you appreciate about me, but don't tell me enough?
I appreciate your ability to fix things, anything, all the time.
Yeah, you tell me that.
Do I tell you that enough?
Well, what do you think mine's going to be?
I have no idea. Making you food.
So that's as obvious as mine.
Those are like very just household choresy things.
Yeah. What's something a little bit
appreciate your
deeper?
Yes, I appreciate your just research pursuit of understanding things more. Really, it comes down to just your pursuit of Jesus. I appreciate that. The way that you continue to learn, relearn, disentangle, whatever words we want to use that don't have too many connotations with them. But you know what I mean?
Love that language, babe.
I think that's something I don't tell you enough. Sometimes I get frustrated with it because I feel like you can go in too far into rabbit holes that then take a lot of your time because...
Well, you got to go into a rabbit hole, I think, to know what just... Otherwise, it's left undiscovered. Mm-hmm. And then you, in the back of your mind or my mind, I go, I got to revisit that to plumb the depths of it, to see how it fits into truth or reality.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or if
I thought of another thing that kind of ties in with that. Or if it's just a
distraction, something that needs to be ignored.
Totally. I think also maybe this isn't the right word, but this just came to my mind. I appreciate that you aren't super stubborn.
Really?
Do you think you're stubborn?
I think I can be stubborn, yeah.
I don't think you're stubborn.
Not in the
I feel like a lot of men are stubborn.
Not in the traditional sense, but
you are so willing to learn new things and change your mind and
yeah, that's all true.
Do something different. And even if I'm really hot on something and I'm trying to share it with you, you're not oh, poo it, or no way we're going to do that. You're always willing to hear me out, I feel like that's a thing I appreciate. I don't think everyone's that way. I'm not that way.
No,
Am I that way?
You're not really.
I'm more so that way because of being married to you.
Yeah.
Do you receive that? Do you think that's true?
I receive that. I think
what do you think you're stubborn about?
I think I can be stubborn.
Waking up?
I just have these, my egoic defense mechanisms can pop up, and very much so, when I know it's right, when I know I'm right, I'm stubborn. I can be just stubborn about things, but everyone can.
I don't think you are.
Wow.
But
well, thanks. Maybe that's a better judgment than my own.
Yeah. You have to answer the question though, not just making you food.
I kind of similarly, I really think I love that you aren't stagnant. There's no real apathy with you.
No.
And I think that is it's one of the things that it's why we are constantly, it's we're never quite reaching. You don't reach heaven because you're always seeking. You're always always trying to get there. You know what I mean? And it's we're always on the hunt, and you're always trying to figure out what's, how can I feed my kids healthier food, or what's a better way to work out and do this, or what's something I don't know and how can I learn it? Mm-hmm. It's just growth minded.
We said this on a previous podcast. I think just
growth minded is a huge, and that was one of the big attractions I think I had for you back in the day, which obviously still do today.
Still stands.
Yeah. I mean, because apathy is it's such a hidden sin, it's nobody talks about that, and gluttony are the two. Nobody talks about it. So yeah. Wow, that's a good. Maybe we should have saved that one for date night. All right, what are we gonna talk about today?
I don't know. This might be a bit of a jabber episode. We don't have a real, after last week's real we dished all of our great parenting wisdom to you guys.
Thoughts and opinions.
So, this week is a little bit more of like a catch-up jabber time. Thought I'd share a little bit about some of my thoughts from my time off the IG.
Oh, yeah.
Because
how was that,
really
babe?
good.
How was the time off?
And I think it's something that I might do every year because...
Well, you've kind of done it every year.
I have not. I haven't taken a
Done
time...
it twice in the last 3 years.
The last time I took an extended break of Instagram was in 2020. That was 5 years ago. I literally haven't.
No, it was 4 years ago, but...
Okay, whatever. Anyways, it was really good just to take like a full dedicated month off. I mean, we sometimes take like the week after Christmas off, but I think just not having it be an impulse,
Yeah,
was
totally.
like really huge, that I couldn't just whenever I wanted to go to it to put something out. And like for me, I think it's different than maybe how a lot of people use Instagram, but like obviously I use Instagram for my job. So I think the addiction to work in that sense of like, I got to put out more, I got to do more, or like just seeing what all other creators do online, if you're in that space, makes you feel like you're just never doing enough.
Totally.
And so I think in any margin that I have of like downtime, nap time, post bedtime, whatever it is, it just can be so easy to squeeze in like, oh, I'll edit this video, or oh, I'll get a post out, or oh, I'll share or do some stories or whatever. And so just not having that gave me so much more headspace, I think, for being present as a mom, really. Mainly that, like I was just able to be not so scattered, especially at like dinner time and bedtime, because I think a lot of times at dinner time, I'm thinking about what I need to do after bedtime, posting wise. I mean, and it bogs me down. Same with bedtime.
There was a time where I think we had really good boundaries there, but
less kids time,
less kids, but also when you move and you do all these other things, I feel like it's a good moment to maybe re-strategize some of that.
Totally.
To frame it better so that, because the point of like doing Sabbath and prolonged fast for anything really like that is like you return and hopefully you can bring back with you a lot of the learnings from it.
I think one of the main things that I brought back was just that I don't want to be on my phone at bedtime. I think I maybe shared a little bit of this on a previous episode, but like that's something that I'm really trying to focus on. I think it was kind of a slippery slope with me because I often put Mirabella to bed first before going in and spending a little bit of one-on-one. Jeremy and I both do bedtime. I know a lot of parents do this differently, but like we both do bedtime pretty much most nights, unless there's like gymnastics one night or one of us is gone. But most nights we spend a little bit of time, each of us with each kid. Yeah. And but I put Mira to bed first. And so a lot of times, like when I'm in there rocking her, nursing her to bed, I will get on my phone for a second and like edit something or look at something or respond to messages or whatever, do some work stuff that I get caught up in. And then I kind of like have my phone in my pocket. And when I'm saying goodnight to the other kids, I'm like, it just keeps me not present. And I think I just need to like not have my phone even on their bed, like just out of the room. Don't even bring it in there. Yeah. Start with Mira, don't, leave it and then not be on it until after everyone's down.
This is one of the most important, in my opinion, conversations of recalibration a family can have is around their digital use case.
I'm not a person to be like, I have so much more that I want to do in terms of like setting better boundaries for it because I don't feel like I'm good at it at all.
Totally, yeah.
But I think that that's one small way where I can say this is a time that I'm going to be very present with my kids because it seems to be one of the most sacred times with my kids. Like it seems to be the time where they want to share things, they want to talk more, and you're giving them one-on-one time because everyone's in their bed.
It's like an imperative almost to not have
when else during the day do you get to go around to each kid and spend one-on-one time? You don't. And so I think I have missed a lot of things because of rushing through it. And that's where like we were sharing before too, just like moving bedtime up 30 minutes. Like not that they all need to be asleep, but just moving the time that like we go in to start putting them to bed up by 30 minutes is a game
bedtime
changer.
Isn't bedtime. Bedtime is 30 minutes before bedtime.
Yeah.
Type of attitude.
That's been huge for us in this season. It won't always be a thing, but like right now, that's definitely been like a helpful thing.
Because I mean, it literally take 10 minutes to get jammies on.
Yeah.
10
or more
minutes. A third. Yeah. Or I say a sixth of an hour.
Especially with the boys.
Just trying to get it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Mm-hmm. So is there anything else that was a very clear and obvious? Because like one thing we were doing for a while that we need to re-implement, re-strategize into our new reality of life is instead of finding phone times, you just got to find your no phone times.
Yeah, which is kind of what this is. And
exactly.
I feel like
what's the
helps
other
better.
Is there another one? What's another one?
Another no phone time?
Yeah. That stuck
Not
out.
at the dinner table.
Okay, so dinner.
But we always do that. That wasn't like a big shit.
Yeah,
but
totally.
I do think I was more inclined to like invite the kids to help me make dinner than I normally am. More inclined to invite them to do a lot of things because it was okay for those things to take longer and be slower because I didn't have all this backed up work stuff that I needed to do, rush through the thing with them so that I could do that.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
And maybe I know some people can't all relate to that, but yeah, I think just the bedtime thing. I think another thing that I really noticed though by being off when you were still on was just like how frustrated I was with you being on your phone.
Totally. Oh yeah.
I had so much more frustration because I was like, I want to talk. I want to do this. Let's design our kitchen. Can we talk about this? And you're like on your phone.
Yeah.
A lot. And I felt frustrated by that.
No, I wasn't. You were just more hyper aware of what it's like when we're both on it.
Yeah.
Totally.
And I think that just it made you more aware of that, and it made me realize like that affects us too. It's not just for our kids that we're putting our phone away, it's for us that we're putting our phone away. And I think it can be even harder for us because we tend to be on our phones when we're not with our kids because it's the time to be on them.
Yeah.
And then we don't have time when we're not on our phones, and that's hard.
Yeah, well, a lot of it too is because we are with our kids literally all day. Mm-hmm. So we don't get to work during the day where a lot of people do. Mm-hmm. So we
also kind of do.
But we also kind of do, but it's kind of this woven in and out thing. And so, at night when it's peaceful, it's kind of the time to work. And so unfortunately there's that, like, we always talk about it. This is the padlock we're trying to crack of our current environment and situation.
Yeah.
But it just so it's unfortunately, it's difficult because the presence, this whole show is about the presence. These are the days, like this literally what it's all about is how do we get back to the presence? What are the things that keep us from there? And the phone is obviously the elephant in the room. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And I listened to a podcast. Well, you listened to this too. It was a teaching from Tyler from our old church. And he was talking about envy.
We interviewed Tyler a couple podcasts ago, his new book, The Familiar Stranger.
Anyways, he was talking about envy, and it was a sermon on like the Beatitudes. But anyways, he was talking about envy. And like I feel like people don't think about envy a lot. Yeah. As a sin, or it's not as recognized, right? Like you said earlier, gluttony and what did you say? Apathy.
Yeah.
But I think envy also could be on that list of things that's just not as recognized, but is so prevalent for our generation. And I realized he in the teaching, he said, envy is when you resent God's goodness in other people's lives and ignore God's goodness in your own life. And listening to that while I was off social just made me realize, wow, I haven't been doing that right now while I was off social. Like while I was off social, I was like, my life feels really good.
Yeah.
I just felt like my life felt good. I felt really grateful. I felt very, presence we always say, but really I just felt like my life was good. I felt like I told you more often, I love this. I love that we do this. I love that we do that. Like did you feel that? I don't know. For me, I felt that.
Yeah.
I hope our kids felt that. And I think social media is such a cult, like it obviously, like another thing that he said in there was envy. It has a lot to do with like reference groups and how like your reference group is like the group of people who's like a notch above you.
Yeah, that was good.
And so he was saying like you used to
have your reference group.
Yeah, have your reference group, but it was only people that were in proximity to your real life. But now we have thousands of reference groups that we can see as people that we aspire to or want to be like or think we should be like or whatever. And I think that like has caused a lot of envy. And then another thing that he said, it was envy is expressed. He was like going through these different things. Like he talked about forgiveness. He talked about anger. He talked about, I forget what all the other ones were. Mercy. There were some other things. Anyways, but envy. And he said, envy is expressed passively as shame and actively as gossip.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so good because, you know, passively as shame of you're seeing all these things that everyone else is doing and you put shame on yourself because you're not doing it. That is social media. Like social media does that. And then actively as gossip, did you see what she's doing? Did you see what he's doing? You know, like talking to other people about what other people are doing because you feel like you're not doing enough and it makes you feel, you know, that just like, oh, it's so bad that like the negative effects of that. And I think just having a month detox from it makes you realize like, wow, I'm actually like that's not my norm when I'm off.
Yep.
And then when I come back, I'm like, oh, wow, I actually like have a lot of that. And that's
really good.
Hard to come back to because it makes you realize like, oh, I've got to like figure out how to not have this because I don't want to have that, you know, and I don't know how that's affecting the rest of my life, but not good probably.
And I feel like a lot of it, tell me how you think. I have something to say here. I'm actually going to take a note so I don't forget it. But how much of it do you think is mental awareness of reality? And what I mean by reality is there is a moment that is within your 5 senses of proximity that is real. And then the phone allows us to live in our minds somewhere else, which isn't now.
Yeah.
It's now somewhere else, but it isn't my now. How much of it is like, you know, literally getting rid of the phone versus, or whatever it might be that is the distracting factor, versus simply being aware of it and being able to still obviously have it, but
use it,
but be consciously aware of what it is, and therefore you have control and dominion over it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I mean, I think awareness is always the first step, people, right?
Yeah.
And maybe the step that most people only get to because the solution is hard.
Yeah,
you know, and awareness is part of the solution. Like it is part of the thing that solves.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's really,
you know,
good.
like you think about like marriage conflict or what, right? Like being aware of the problem is
that you don't know about.
Part of the solution, but also it'd be great if you could have a solution to some of it too. And I don't know what that is. And I don't think our generation has good, no one really is like talking about what those solutions might be. That's not,
yeah, well, a lot of people I think are maybe. I mean, there's an ancient, what I was going to say is there's an ancient biblical, I feel like this conversation right now is just, what keeps coming up in my mind is like, well, is a solution. It's ancient, it's biblical, it's Sabbath.
Yeah. I'm more mean like, how do you do what we do online with social media healthfully? You know, like how do you be aware of the issues that it's causing, but you still have to be on it and recognize that it is your good. It is the goodness of God in your own life that we have this to use as an opportunity for work, the flexibility to get all of that, you know, but then also recognizing. Yeah,
I think it's just I think it comes down to like, it's freedom through discipline type of thing, you know, like if you don't tell the fire where to burn, it will consume everything. And so it's just like, well, what do we want this fire pit to look like? What days does it burn? How big is the pit? And it's just, you know, and this is why Sabbath is a return to presence. That's really what it is. It's in presence with a, you know, a meditative or contemplative mental lock on God. And with no distraction, you cease from all distractions, from all inputs that would take your mind out of this present focus, you know. And
we've been slacking on our Sabbath.
Yeah, this year for sure we've been slacking. Last year too. Well, it's because again,
we were in a good rhythm there, like before the holidays.
At your parents, when we were living there, it was too. But remember, we moved last year like twice.
Yeah, we've had ebbs and flows with it, and I think again that's okay. Like
it's okay to have natural ebbs and flows, but you got to snap back into.
April is the month for Sabbath.
You got to snap back into
family value.
Yeah, disciplines that build freedom. And so things only feel all consuming to the degree that something feels all consuming or you're swept up by it. I would argue is to the degree in which you are detached from reality, because reality is truth. Truth is all that there is. So, a disharmony with truth or reality would, it's a separation from it. Like it's a distraction. And so, cracking the whip, get back to the boundaries.
What were we talking about the other day with truth at the dinner table? We were doing one of the family or the Connect cards for family edition with the kids.
Those are so good.
And they asked something. What did they ask? And then we were trying to explain.
Oh, no, it
truth.
was, I said, there's a difference between wanting something and hoping for something. That's what it was.
No, it wasn't that one. It was a different question. Oh, that's going to bug me. But
Like,
it had something to do.
You might want dessert. Really? No, that was it. You might want dessert. Remember?
We talked about this on an episode already. It wasn't that one. And then I said to you, this is why you're a poet of truth. Like, remember at the dinner table when we were talking about it? We were trying to explain to the kids some big God concept in like layman's terms.
Was it
and
the
I wasn't
Trinity?
doing the best. Maybe it was that.
Was it the Trinity?
Or it was something to do with.
So like one way
It
we're
was
trying
something to do with the Trinity.
That's
Which,
not-
by the way, okay, I want to say this really quick
Yeah,
because
go on.
I thought it was cool. I did not know this. Do you guys know the meaning of St. Patrick's Day? Did you know before I told you?
Yeah, I don't think I did. No. And I gotta fact check this.
Yeah, okay, fact checked it. Whatever, you can do that. But basically, St. Patrick was like a awesome dude. Like
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know
he
anything about him.
he was one of the biggest spreaders of Christianity in Ireland. Like he spread it. That he was a missionary.
Yeah.
But he was a missionary. He was like before that, he was like had a radical conversion or whatever, and then became a missionary. And one of the main reason or ways that he used to teach people about Jesus as a missionary was the 3-leaf clover. It was how he described the Trinity. 3 clovers in one leaf, right?
Oh,
right?
funny.
One
Yeah,
stem.
you said that.
And that was like the example that he used. That's part of why the clover is even like a thing.
Yeah.
Is because of the 3-leaf clover. So I used that analogy with the kids, which was actually kind of cool because our kids actually have never heard the Trinity explained really like that before. And so I think that sparked a lot more questions,
Okay,
especially from the older two.
you're right. He was credited with bringing Christianity to the island.
Ireland.
Of Scotland or Wales, it says. England, Scotland, Wales. Oh yeah, no, patron of of Ireland.
Anyways, that was kind of a good example because for a kid's brain, it's like, 3 clovers all on one stem. Yeah. God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit,
Wow, yeah.
all on one.
Kidnapped at 16 by Irish raiders. He was enslaved for 6 years in Ireland, worked as a shepherd. During this time, he turned to faith, claiming God spoke to him in a vision, urging him to escape. He fled, made it back to Britain, and eventually became a priest. Years later,
Yes, that's right.
after another vision, this time of the Irish pleading for his return, he went back to Ireland as a missionary, probably around 432 AD. He didn't introduce Christianity single-handedly. There were other Christians there, but he made it stick, blending local traditions with Christian teachings, like using bonfires or the famous shamrock to explain the Trinity. He died on March 17th, sometime around 461 AD. Interesting.
Yeah, anyways, I thought that was a good, but it was something about that, Jared, when I was explaining that analogy, and Ember was like, but I don't get it. How are they all one? And then we were talking about that, and then you were explaining truth as the component of the Trinity somehow. I can't remember.
I think I tied in, well, what's our monthly value this month? And they all say holistic health. And I'm like, holistic health is a all-encompassing heart. It's a dance between several things. You have a mind, you have a body, and you have a soul, right? And I didn't quite, because you don't want to, I didn't jump too far into like, you're but the concept that we were having with them, I think the conversation was like, you're made in the image of God. God's Trinitarian, you're Trinitarian of sorts. Like there's this trifecta going on, but you're Ember, right? You know what I mean? We call you Ember. It's funny to have these like big conversations with these little kids.
Crazy what kids will do to getting you to really understand what you believe. And
yeah, well,
when you have to
C.S. Lewis
explain
said
to a
it best
5-year-old,
himself. If you can't explain it to a 5-year-old, you don't understand it.
Yeah, and it is like it really stretches you a lot.
And this is part of the growth curve. Is like kids force you to reckon with your programming. Mm-hmm. So when they ask you a deep philosophical question, and you're tempted to just like spit out the programming you've been told and taught to say, because if you believe that, it's the right thing. But then if you can't explain it, then you haven't actually plumbed the depths of it. Therefore, you're essentially, it's okay. You don't need to like, you don't literally need to know how the internet works to use it. You know what I mean? But there is a sense when your destiny is eternally, hanging on what you believe. Yeah. Start investigating, and kids really start peeling back the onion of what you believe.
And just like, it's crazy the things like you just said, like they ask big questions, but also they ask like not big questions where like today when I called you and had to tell you that story.
When they can't comprehend the answer though. So you have to like answer.
But like, can I tell a story real quick?
Yeah.
Like driving Bodhi home from preschool this morning, he goes to like a little couple hour in the morning preschool, and we were listening to The Goodness of God, which is like one of my favorite worship songs. And it says like, your goodness is it's running after me. I will never sing on this podcast. But, and then it says like, what's the other line where it says like, you're so good. You're so good. So good. So good. And Bodhi was like, Mom, is the baby in her tummy or out of her tummy? And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, is the baby in or out of her tummy? And I'm like, Bodhi, what do you mean? I like turn the song down. He's like, the person singing this, is the baby in her tummy or out of her tummy? I'm like, well, why are you asking that? And he's like, well, who are they singing the song about? And in his head, I'm connecting. I don't know for sure. I need to like ask him more later. But in his head, he was thinking like, well, I hear mom and dad say, so good, Bodhi. Good job, Bodhi. Like, that's so good, right? He hears that. But he doesn't hear us say, God, you're so good all the time. Yeah. Unfortunately, like out loud, not nearly to the extent that he hears us tell him that he's good or that the other kids that they're good. And so he just thinks like that kids hear that. Kids hear that they're so good. And
so funny.
So then I got to explain to him like, this is about God and how God is so good. But like, that's not a big question. That's a little question that he asked. But then like, it's crazy the things that like you think like the goodness of God is elementary, but even that, what does that mean to them? Yeah. They don't understand that fully yet. Like, it's just crazy.
There's something he said the other day that I about lost it. It was so funny, and I can't remember what it was. Oh, I wish I could. I told
like
myself.
Like an old man thing? Like, well, G.
No, yeah.
His G's before he asked.
At dinner. G. At dinner, yeah. What was it? Like Rad said.
Oh, golly G.
Rad said something, and I was like, like, oh, well, there might not be enough dessert for that or something. And Bodhi just crosses his arms. Oh, G.
Yeah. He's such an old man mannerisms. I do not know where he gets that. He said he got it from Jack and Annie. Yeah, you think that you do that, but I don't think that you do that.
I can't remember.
But I don't know that Magic Treehouse does that either. But anyways, that was another thing that I was going to bring up in this podcast episode, just off the programming stuff. Because like the kids we've talked about this in podcasts before, but like our kids are now starting to become more programmed by things outside of us, like books, specifically in movies, obviously the main two probably. But in that Habits of the Household book that I read this year, we had Justin on the podcast, and it was a really good episode. If you didn't listen to that episode, it's all about like family stuff and parenting really stuff. Really, really great nuggets of wisdom in that book. But one of the things he talks about is how when he does family movie nights with his kids, he makes them always watch the end credits. Yeah. That's like a rule that they have for family night. And the reason that he does that is because it gives the kids an opportunity to like unpack the movie, ask questions. It gives the family a chance to say like, what was your favorite part? What was the scary part? Or just say out loud how the movie programmed you. Like it gives the kids a chance to do that, and the parents a chance to have a conversation. Obviously some movies don't have end credits, but just being able to spend that like 3 minutes after the movie to not just turn it off and go your separate ways. Because like an hour and a half long movie to a kid, they're in that world, you know? And then if you just turn it off and snap and you don't give them any time to process that, like it's kind of a miss. You know,
it's a huge miss.
And so I was telling Jared this the other day. He was like, "Oh my gosh, we have to do that. That's so amazing." Yeah. And so we started doing that with the kids, and it's been interesting just to see the ways that they are being programmed. Yeah, I mean, the things that we watch.
It's one of, I think, in parenting, it's one of the most underestimated significant imprints on our children is the just that they're being programmed. Like every time they consume something with their sponges of a mind, it is equivalent to someone writing code, taking the hard drive and plugging it into their brain and uploading whatever it is that they wrote into the code. It's that literal. Like, so whoever wrote the movie Robin Hood, or not Robin Hood, what did we watch? Peter Pan, with with the good and the bad and the clash between the two, and the way the Lost Boys playing without a mother figure, and then the mother figure comes, and then Peter Pan represents the spirit of boyhood, and Hook is the spirit of adulthood, and they're clashing in this macrocosm play. It's like, this is a deeply programming.
Yeah.
And I remember we just watched it the other day, and I was like seeing through it. I'm like, this is, I had to pause it to go get a glass of water, because I'm like, this is a lot to take in, because I haven't seen this in so long. Like, wow. But to the same intensity, our kids were getting programmed with this narrative.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just this like big eye-opening conversation we had the other day. And I think it's we don't think about it as literal or as significant as I think it actually is. And this doesn't mean you should take everything crazily. It is to say, like, literally 3 minutes after a movie to discuss with your kids, like, or maybe set the record straight on a few things, or identify who the good guy and the bad guys actually were, is just these like self-corrective, like if their consciousness is growing in a way and then it starts to get off, you just kind of self-correct it a little bit.
Yeah.
It's hugely impactful.
Or even not self-correct it, but just become aware of what their focus is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
or what stands out to them.
Totally.
And like, oh, interesting. That stood out to that kid.
Yeah, like that stood out to you?
Yeah, like that teaches you about your kid in like a lot of ways, you know?
Gosh, yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, the programming thing has been huge for many years now for us. Even just with ourselves, like I posted something on X the other day, and it was you know, whatever, it was some basic thing, but it's like, what you put in your mouth will build your body, what you put in your mind will build your soul, essentially. And it's just this like this re-up of awareness that like what you consume will literally become your heart, in a sense. What you put in your eyes and ears, and out, what does the Bible say? Out from your heart overflows, or out from your mouth overflows your heart. And it's like, yeah, but we don't really think about that, you know, anymore. I'm an adult, I can handle it. Like, I know what's right, I know what's wrong. It's like, well, yeah, but are you actually using that wisdom to change your heart? Because what you watch will literally transform your heart. Just because you're an adult doesn't mean you're somehow immune to being programmed. No, like we're all programmed deeply.
Oh yeah, totally.
And to the degree in which you're programmed, I would say, is to the degree in which you're NPC, non-player character. Like you literally don't have original thought, or you know, can't really think for yourself very well, and you outsource absolutely everything, and there isn't this like this alive, vibrant soul tapped into original source creative thought. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And then on the other side would obviously be the Lego movie identifies this extremely well. The master builders are original creative, the essence of creation, in a sense. Like they're creative and they have original
Jared's favorite
thoughts.
movie is the Lego movie.
Yeah.
One of.
I think it's the
We used to watch it every Christmas.
I think
we
it's
kind of let that tradition die
then
once we had kids, which is ironic.
On the other side of the spectrum, though, you have Mr. Business, right? And he wants everything to be
business.
He wants Lord Business. He wants everything to be organized and not creative, and basically robots, cogs in a machine doing what they're told according to the instructions. And if you deviate,
the American government.
Exactly. Well, yeah, all government by definition is any, you know, the more
follow the rules.
Yeah. But
it got too big there.
I think the Lego movie is literally it's a re-up of the Matrix. They're telling the same story, and the Matrix is obviously deeply prophetic. It's just absurd. Yeah. How it paints this.
I want to watch that movie again.
Right, like in the same way Jesus used a metaphor to explain reality, flesh, spirit. The Matrix uses very similar metaphors to try to explain reality, and then the Lego movie does it with with the spirit, with the master builders and Lord business. It's insane. Deeply programmed. It's
I was just thinking, how do we...
Real quick, those movies show the program, right? Yeah. But a lot of things, anyways.
How do you teach your kids, though, like going off like a movie? I think about this a lot. Like, how do we teach our kids?
You don't. You don't. You can't.
You don't even know what I'm going to say.
Sorry.
How do we teach our kids to follow instructions, right? That's what you teach 3 and 4-year-olds. It's like you pound it in them, learning how to listen and follow instructions. How do you teach your kids how to do that? But then at some point, don't always do that, because it's okay to be a master builder, think for yourself, and not always do what everyone else is doing, and not always follow the rules. And sometimes the rules aren't what's best for you. And sometimes you need to break the rules. Yeah. And in order to do what's best for you, how do you teach your kids that? As a parent, how do you not be the parent that's like, oh, hands off, like you figure it out, you break all the rules, you do what you want, because I'm not a strict parent, you're less attached, versus the parent that's like, you follow the rules and you model following the rules. Like, how do you do that?
That question is trying to unravel the greatest paradox of life, right? Like, there is no proper middle ground. There's just
the goal is the middle ground, though.
Well, the middle ground lets you survive, I think, life. Like you're like
but like you want to be a respectful person that in some sense follows the rules, and in some sense,
yes. What I'm saying, though, to the degree in which you expose truth, I would say, is to the degree in which you're going to have a really hard life. In fact, we've been guaranteed a hard life, and all the early Christians died horrible deaths, putting their foot down and demonstrating this aligned with God way of living.
Well, how does that connect?
Oh, because they were exposing the system, essentially. They were peeling up. They were the rebels. They were popping
They're the master builders.
They're the master builders. Okay. Yeah, they're the neos. They're popping up the hood of reality and saying, but the government or controlling, authority, the system of the world, right? To use Jesus's analogy, like, it's not going to like that. The powers at play, we wrestle not against flesh or blood, but with principality. Like, the powers at play that need us to ignorantly give them our source energy for them to even survive. To the more people that I would say are, tuned into Christ, our energy is going to be going to Christ, and we are going to be then putting His energy out into the world. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so we starve the other side. We starve the enemy.
But how do you teach your kids that? Okay.
By example. Like, it's the only... like by doing hard things and saying no to certain things.
How do you make them basically to not become just this rule following, never do anything? You can't
teach them to ask questions. That's it.
Yeah.
Teach them to ask questions.
I think that is like a huge part of it. This is also like where kind of like with the homeschooling talk, like, because I feel like education is a huge part of it, right? When you send your kids to, this is not a knock, because we may do it at some point too, but when you send your kids to a formal school all day, every day of the week, specifically if you send them to public school,
okay
private school too.
To do that, you just got to know you have your work cut out for you.
When you do that, you're putting your kids into a system where there is so many rules to follow, right? Raise your hand before you go to the bathroom. Raise your hand before you talk. Walk quietly in a line down the hallway. Make sure you do this. You have 5 minutes of passing time, and you put all of your stuff in your locker. You can't do that. You can't get up until this time. Recess is 5 minutes. You can't eat any food until you're at lunchtime. It's
training for the Industrial Revolution. Yeah.
So it's so rigid. There's so many rules to follow in it, and it's not bad. Like, they're there to help the system thrive. But like, I feel like once kids are in that, they get rewarded for doing it correctly, right? They get rewarded for following the rules. Yeah. And so then they are incentivized to continue following the rules, which is good in a sense. But at what point, how do you, we are homeschooling our kids, so we aren't putting them into that. So they don't really, they know that they need to come to dinner when the dinner bell rings. They know they need to listen to mom and dad, but they don't have all these, like, I have to do this all day, every day, any of that, like, yet.
I think it's just much different. Like, if a adult figure came to our home and asked our kids to do something, they would, if it made sense, they would respectfully comply due to the respect owed to whoever's in our home. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So they might not be having the the macro day in, day out, 5 days a week, 8-hour workday job that the norm for a kid.
No,
like
that's fair.
School is training a kid how to do the same thing for the system to make money when they get older. It's all the same thing.
This is though where I kind of like, and because, sorry, this is just like this has been something I've been thinking about a lot lately, because I've been thinking a lot about what school is going to look like for our kids next year and into the future, because we can't do the same thing that we did this year for reasons. But this is one of the reasons why I've been so drawn to the classical education model, because the whole premise is getting your kids to be critical thinkers, at the core. That. It's like getting your kids to ask why instead of what, and getting them to,
while having an authority,
be able to defend and explain that on their own instead of just regurgitating or following the rule, information in, information out. The whole point and the way and the style that they teach it, obviously I haven't done it yet, so I'm not fully in it, but like just from my little understanding of it, is like critical thinking. And so that critical thinking comes from more of the rebellious side of like, if you're asking why, you're kind of a rebel, because you're already coming at it from a place of like being able to even ask why, you know, like if you're just following the rules and you're filling in the blanks and you're getting the right answer, then you're not asking why. You're just doing what you know you should do, or what is. And
it's funny how like tied into identity this is, because if you're asking why, there's someone asking, in you. And this is where we tie that language naturally to souls, or like they're a free soul, or like they have a wild spirit, or whatever it might be. And that's just language, I think, being used to color, I would say, or maybe identify a proclivity that someone might have towards just peeking under the hood. You know what I mean? And asking why. Yeah, that's interesting. This is a really interesting, big conversation. But yeah, as far as how do you teach your kids, that's the impossible question.
Because like we don't want to teach our kids to always ask why for everything right now, right? Like we want them to just accept. I think in some ways, like that's too much for kids. That could be overwhelming. Like I think in some ways, they just need to accept what things are.
Yeah, it's not good for kids to
it's too much.
Have to ask why for everything. It's just it's what we're trying to base. I think
I'm asking the question. I'm not trying to explain anything.
Oh, yeah, I am not.
Okay.
Does it sound like I am?
No, yeah. I just.
Okay, good. Yeah. No, I don't think we are at all. I
thought you were going to say what we're trying to explain. And I was like, what are we
No. What we're trying to point to,
okay.
What we're trying to, I think, wrestle with in the conversation is the, now I lost my thought there.
Critical thinking, why? I said we don't want our kids to always ask why for everything all the time. Like we want them to, it's too much for them. It's overwhelming. Is that jog your memory?
Like if we're training I was going to wrap it up. I was going to wrap up what this whole rant little thing is about, but
it'll come back to you.
Yeah, it was just a sentence I had in my mind.
Speaking of wrap it up, you should probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is interesting just as a parent figuring out how to balance those worlds of like, hey, follow the instructions, listen to me, versus like sometimes you kind of want to let them have that rebel spirit and not break it, because that could be their superpower someday,
Yeah,
that whole thing.
That could be their superpower, yeah. I mean, so many of the great figures
were those people.
And yeah, a lot of them were homeschooled, but homeschool was also a lot more common. It was like the way you got educated for a long time.
How's the garden coming?
We're going to make massive progress on the garden this year. Lumber's getting delivered tomorrow. So. The chicken coop / shed will be done in, 2 weeks.
Okay, I don't care about the chicken coop.
Well, it's all tied into the garden, it's all, because then they can move the chickens over.
I do care about it, but like, I don't
once they're over, it's, the boxes. I have a guy up the road milling the boxes. I should be filming the content. Man, just
too much to do. No.
2 hours.
Let's just talk about it.
Let's just talk about it. So all of the garden boxes are getting milled literally as we speak. So he's going to deliver those early next week, probably.
Done?
Yeah, done. Well, no, I'll have to assemble
You'll build
them. So then I'll have to decide, we'll put those out. They're heavy beams. They're really heavy. I'll need help probably moving them. So we'll put those out.
Are you recruiting my help?
No, I'll probably have Jacob. We'll get them like leveled and set up, and then we can decide what we want the space to look like, so if you...
We're trying to figure out what we want the ground cover to be. So all you gardeners listening to this podcast, chime in.
We're thinking like I'm either a mulch or like...
I want it to be soft and kind of natural looking.
There's a low growing grass wildflower mix that just looks beautiful. And then you could just spread that out the whole thing.
Wildflower mix though?
Oh yeah.
Like, so it would be like...
Not 7 foot high wildflowers.
I know, but like dandelion kind of?
Just, I don't know. It's a bunch of native Pacific Northwest, whatever they're called.
So you're just walking on those? That would be kind of cool.
Yeah, the paths would get worn in, but
that's kind of like what I want.
It looks a little more wild.
I want something where like the boxes aren't like... My mom's garden she has raised beds and she has like pea gravel all around it, and I don't like I want to be able to walk barefoot, and I don't like walking on the pea gravel, but I also don't like how some people's gardens just have like bark chips everywhere because it doesn't look as natural. It looks like Superman made. And I want the garden to feel a little more...
Mulch looks fine, in my opinion.
To me, like, grass would be ideal, but I know it's a weed nightmare. So it's like, we got to find some sort of grass.
Well, it's not just weeds. You got to mow grass and like...
And maintenance nightmare. So like, what's a low-maintenance, grassy equivalent?
Clover.
That we can put?
Like a low-growing ground cover clover. Or
it might be.
Flowering something or other that spreads and kind of low vines out, Well,
I'm asking the people in case... There's probably a lot of gardeners on here. And then we're also going to need to know what we need, so are all the tips and tricks for the deer, because...
I was going to say, our biggest issue is the deer.
They will be
I wake up every single morning. I go to the window with my cup of coffee or whatever.
There they are.
They're there. 4 or 5 deer just sitting in the garden. That isn't literally a garden where we're
building the garden.
But when we start growing them food, they're definitely not...
Actually, not right there. They're a little away from it, but...
Oh, but they will be right there. There's prints in the garden right now,
and it's like we don't want to fence it, and then
we'll have to, unless you can get some high-powered sprinkler gun.
Can we put one of those guys out?
I am not going to look at a strip mall advertisement out here.
Wait, but it'll be like behind the shop, like we'll hide it somewhere.
Our neighbors, no. If I had a neighbor that did that, I would BB gun it.
We don't have an HOA. It doesn't matter. We don't really have neighbors.
I would rather try to find some high-powered sprinkler that like is motion censored and we can turn on a switch.
Would that work? Water?
Let me put it this way. I wouldn't be able to eat my grass if I was getting eyeballed by a sprinkler the whole time.
That's fair.
And I doubt the deer would too.
We're a long ways out from having sprinklers over here though. We're still be running hoses all summer like 2 years ago.
We got 99 problems and the deer is one.
More than that, you guys. Don't ever buy a fixer-upper property.
Well, do it. It's going to keep us busy for a long time. We're going to have...
Sure is. Steal some of our soul in the meantime.
On that note, I'm going to go work on it.
Yeah, great.
I bought some plants yesterday.
What I want to see is
progress.
Finished.
Progress.
No.
I don't think you realize how quickly this is
I want to see completed progress, because you show me progress all the time. Babe, you see my progress for the rock wall? You see my progress for the dirt pile? You see my progress for this flat base? You see my progress on the chicken coop? I don't want to see the progress. I want to see the completion of a singular project. We start thousands of projects and do not finish.
And we move a degree a day on
None.
all of them. Yeah.
It's not.
No, this year, I agree, Audrey. That's going to be donezo.
Okay.
High five.
We'll see.
We'll do it. I'm going to do it.
Okay. Appreciate you guys. These are the days.
See you next week.